Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. Now, what a start to the week we're having in terms of the Bitcoin price and Bitcoin mining sector. This is a massive week, you guys, for the pending ETF approval, which is anticipated to come through on Wednesday. We've welcomed Anthony back to talk to us about the ETF, give us his opinion, and how he thinks that's going to impact the Bitcoin mining share price. However, before we get into that, we had a couple of big updates out from CleanSpark, IREN Energy, and DMG Blockchain that we wanted to get through. So we'll get to that in 1 second. Before we do though, you guys, please take a second, hit the like button. It's 100% free to do, and it really helps get this content to other people who may find value. If you're not already part of the community, McNallie Money, feel free to join. We just crossed the 40,000 subscriber milestone. I can't believe how much this channel has grown over the last 2 years, and I want to thank each and every one of you for your support. With that being said, you guys, if you have any questions for myself or Anthony, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And without further ado, let's get into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. Today's video, to kick off the week, we've got Anthony Power back. There's been a flurry of news over the weekend. We're going to be talking about some of the big developments. The other key piece of news this week, you guys, is the pending Bitcoin spot ETF approval. The deadline is January 10th. There's been a lot of anticipation. Twitter or X is absolutely going crazy about this proposed ETF launch, so we want to talk about that as well. But before we do, let's kick it over to Anthony and get a quick update on our good friend CleanSpark.
Hi, Bryce. Yeah, just straight off the press today, actually, CleanSpark have effectively done what Riot did a few weeks ago, and they've unveiled plans to augment their proprietary hash power into the ongoing landscape, placing an order for 12 exahash of S21 Bitmain Antminers for a total consideration of 193 million. So we know that they're already got orders for 20 exahash in place. This takes that to over 30 exahash once these are installed. So it's pretty much an amazing order. What's more good about the order is they've actually got an option to purchase another 100,000 units on top of this order at a fixed rate of $16 a terahash. And that has to be exercisable within the year. So they've obviously got a strong belief that they can grow heading towards a magic 50 exahash by the end of 2024. And maybe not energized by that point, but certainly have put the orders in place by the end of this year to grow to 50 exahash in the foreseeable future. And that takes away the anticipation of what their growth target would be for this year and next year. So yeah, an amazing 60,000 units coming in, option to buy another 100,000 units. They're already planned to be at 16 exahash during February when they energize Sandoval, which has been completed from a construction side point. The miners are actually in Georgia now, so they'll be installed and energized in February. So we'll see a big rise in February from their hashing rate. And they're really playing catch up now with the likes of Core Scientific and Marathon Digital. But yeah, really good update today.
It's really interesting to watch. I remember when double digits or 10 exahash was kind of the big milestone. Now we're talking about 50, and I'm sure it'll be 100 and 200 down the road. A lot of jockeying going on. We were just talking before we turned the camera on here about the share price of all the miners this morning. We saw a big pullback. Now we've seen a big recovery. So I personally think there's a lot of shuffling going on with traders exiting these positions, potentially selling on news or ETF news. And now we're starting to see some of the more long-term, bigger institutional money coming into these miners. So I definitely feel like we're on the cusp of something big here, Anthony. And these kind of orders really add proof to that. Obviously, people are putting their money where their mouth is and coughing up millions of dollars for these equipment orders, which hopefully is a sign of good things to come. So big news out of CleanSpark, really making a run into that big boy club with, like you say, Marathon, Cores, Riot. And then we've got some additional news today out from our good friends at IREN Energy. Ticker on them is IREN, IREN. Why don't you walk us through that one as well, Anthony?
Yeah, so IREN at the end of last week, we didn't manage to get it in our updates on Thursday or Friday, but they released later at the end of last week their update for the month of December. And again, it was a very, very, very good update. They mined 399 Bitcoin, which was an 8% increase in what they mined in November. And we've already alluded to the fact that, the higher amount of fees awarded per block in December compared to previous months was significant, around about 20%. Marathon itself was probably achieving 22% because it's got its own mining pool. But Iris also had the benefit of the increase in Bitcoin price as well. So if you look at that from a revenue standpoint, their revenues for December were at 17.2 million, and that was a 51% increase on the previous month. So that's a really good increase. Mining margin. So Iris are one of the few miners that actually put their energy price on their updates, and their mining margin for December was 65.5%. And that's an increase of 12% on the previous month. So these mining margins, we haven't seen these since sort of like back in 2021, when miners were sort of getting 75-80% margins quite regularly through that bull cycle. Then we saw them all come down significantly to around about the 50%, even some 40% margins. Now we're starting to see, with the Bitcoin price rise, these increased margins. So yeah, a really good update from Iris Energy. They've on track to add a further 2.7 exahash, I believe, in the first quarter of 2024, and another 1.7 exahash in the second quarter of 2024. So at the Childress site at the moment, they've got 80 megawatts being built, being fitted out in blocks of 20 megawatts. And, we'll start seeing miners go into that first 20 megawatts imminently now. So, in this first quarter, we'll start seeing those miners go into that facility, start churning out Bitcoin. That takes them to sort of like 10 exahash. So they reached the magic 10 exahash, but that doesn't seem to be the magic number anymore now. We've just alluded to the fact that 3 of the miners have got effectively growth strategies that are going to be higher than 50 exahash. So Marathon, in their update, suggested they'll double their hash rate in 2024 to 50. Riot's already put an order in with a potential further order options to get them close to 100 exahash. And we've just seen, the likes of CleanSpark equally get to 50. So, some of the mid-tier miners, what would have been in any other year a great growth, are they going to be able to compete with those sort of like top 3? And I probably, maybe Core Scientific goes into that top 3 as well, because they're already at 17 exahash and they've got more orders coming online as well to take them over 20 exahash. But overall, very good update. They did have a couple of $100,000 in revenues, in power credits for their energy strategy. And so when you look at the benefit that they achieved for the month and look at it from a petahash perspective, they were achieving over $3,000 per petahash, and only one miner actually achieved more than that, and that was Marathon Digital, with the massive results they had in December, record-beating results. So, but overall, Iris Energy, great update, very consistent throughout the last couple of years, actually, especially from production along the lines of Bitfarms and Hive Digital. You keep them in that sort of bracket, those top 3 there. But yeah, good update.
Yeah, Iris is definitely one to keep an eye on, you guys. This is one we've been watching closely over the last few years as it started to emerge into more of a main player. It was relatively unknown for quite some time, and definitely starting to hold its own weight against some of these other miners. I'm also glad, Anthony, that you mentioned the margins, because what's interesting here, you guys, is when you start to think about it, we're over $45,000 Bitcoin today, US. Even a few $1,000 move in Bitcoin makes a significant impact on these companies' profitability, their gross margin, their profit margin. And if you're bullish on Bitcoin, as both Anthony and I and all of these companies are, we expect there to be quite a big move in Bitcoin. So this is going to be one to watch. I remember thinking to myself a few years ago as I was putting together this mining thesis that if you compare Bitcoin to fiat currency, Investing in the miners is essentially like buying into the Federal Reserve, right? These are the people that create the new currency or create the new coins. And I think this is going to be really the focal point here over the next few quarters as we move into 2024. So great update from Iris. And Anthony, as you say, definitely starting to progress into that mid-tier status. The other one we have who's working their way up the chain here, this has been requested a lot in the comment section, is DMG Blockchain. So I'll give it to you to talk about this one as well, Anthony, but another exciting update from one of the smaller moving to mid-tier type of miners.
Yeah, so DMG, didn't put out a formal update, just put out effectively a one-sided tweet with regards to the update. But they mined 72.1 Bitcoin in the month, and that was at a rate of just over 2.3 Bitcoin per day, which was like nearly an 8% increase on November. So again, benefiting from the increased fees. In terms of revenues, that 72 Bitcoin works out at 3 million revenues, and that was a 25% increase on the previous month. So really good month December for the miners, and equally for DMG Blockchain. They sold 64% of the production, so they sold 46 Bitcoin. They've increased their hodl to 455 Bitcoin. Now, for a relatively small miner with literally 1.1 exahash, that's a great hodl. I mean, that's got a value of about 19.2 million. So that puts them in a good place from a liquidity point of view as they go through and navigate the halving coming up in like less than 15 weeks now. So a good update, good consistent update. They're going to be a top, if we're looking at 2023 from a production point of view, they're like a top 6 miner in terms of what they can produce with the machines that they've got. So they've been able to get a little bit more out of the machines than some of the other miners have. Good update, good year for DMG Blockchain.
Yeah, I know DMG, we've had Sheldon and the team on before. They're working on some pretty cool immersion cooling stuff for next season. They mine in British Columbia here in Canada, which is a hotter region. So they're working on some of those temperature controls and getting that efficiency in a better spot. But definitely an impressive hodl from this company. And I think that's why a lot of the retail investors, we talked about the move potentially from some of the bigger names in mining down into some of the smaller companies looking for bigger returns. DMG is one that we've seen a lot in the comments and in our Patreon groups. Speaking of Patreon, Anthony, I know we haven't chatted about it in a couple of videos. Do you want to just give a quick update on what you're doing on the Patreon there?
So the Patreon's doing really well. We've got about 93, 94 members now in the last week since we started. And it's a case of, doing a lot more analysis than I was doing on some of the social media sites. So this gives me an opportunity, to produce more with the financial support that the Patreon brings along with it. So also, I've been alluding to some of the trades I've been making and the trades I made for 2023 as well. So they're in the Patreon there for people to have a look at. Again, it's just, do your own research in this space. I've certainly spent a lot of time doing the research, and some trades have gone well, some trades not so well. So it is a volatile space. That's a warning for everybody. But I hope that the group, also shares with me what they're doing as well, gives me an insight, something I might not have picked up on. So it's a case of sharing information. The group itself will get information quicker than I put out elsewhere as well. So that's a benefit for them, because they are helping me to drive the channel and to do what I do on a more full-time basis. But more plans in the next week or so with a fantasy share league that we'll put into place and drive some cash prizes for the end of the period, to give people incentive to come along and take part. But looking forward to it.
Yeah, good stuff. I know you were in there active this morning, posting some of your trades, Anthony. Seems like you timed it perfectly, the bottom of today's pullback. And the other thing I was going to say, you guys, is we have CEOs on the channel regularly. We have TeraWulf coming up next week. So we're actually going to give you the opportunity to ask questions, and then I'll incorporate those into the meetings with the CEOs as well. So pretty interesting stuff. Another update for everyone, we've got the December official production results summary coming out this week. So Anthony's put together all of his tables. It's going to be a more in-depth video. We do that once a month, so stay tuned for that. But we definitely wanted to get today's update out. Now, last but not least, Anthony, the Bitcoin ETF, this is one that a lot of people are talking about. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Do you think we're going to get approval this week? And what do you expect the Bitcoin mining companies to do in anticipation or reaction to this approval?
Well, from an ETF point of view, that what I've seen through the news channels, through social media, it looks imminently that we'll see some hopefully be approved this Wednesday or Thursday. I think the 11th has been looked at as a date for approval. We're seeing even SEC forms being uploaded today from some of these investment funds, effectively showing their final position now, including like fees that they're going to be charging investors, and some of them have very competitive fees with each other. So that looks really useful. The second part of your question as to what impacts for the miners, I mean, it's a difficult one. I mean, if there is a growth of people wanting to invest in an ETF, that will give the demand for Bitcoin an increase, and therefore the price should, from an economic standpoint, increase. If the price increases, that benefits the miners because their margins increases. It's all about revenues for the miners. They want, they mine Bitcoin, it's revenues, to actually, pay for their operational and capital expenditure, or in some, certain terms, for those that have been hodling the Bitcoin, anticipating an increased price in the future. So if the price goes up in Bitcoin, that benefits all the miners. It still makes it profitable to mine, but it also makes it profitable for everybody else to mine. So we've noticed, the hash rate reached, I think, a high of at the end of December of 680 exahash. That's the global hash rate. When you consider it started at 250 exahash at the start of the year, that's sort of 150% higher. So that's significant. However, in early January, it dropped to like 450. So we do sort of see these roller coaster days where miners are getting switched on, and then when it becomes less viable to mine, they get switched off. So we are seeing a lot of that in that sort of all throughout the 2023 and also now in early 2024. But the actual trend is definitely going higher. I mean, we all came up with our expectations early in 2023. I know on your channel, I think I probably, a lot of people were suggesting sort of 375, 400, and we blew past that by about April time. So, it's very difficult. Where do we think we'll be by the end of 2024? It's so difficult to think at the moment. I mean, the halving comes up. If the price action in Bitcoin hasn't increased, we know that some of the less efficient miners will get switched off across the board because it just will become unviable when you're having to pay twice as much energy for your Bitcoin that you were paying the day before. So there's two ways. I mean, it could be that investors want to have an investment in ETF, which can be a tax efficient investment. So that's another thing that will appeal to certain investors. The fact they can put it into a certain funds that will let them, benefit from all the gains without having to pay taxes, and that's what a lot of people have been waiting for. But if the Bitcoin price rises, the miners, create, more profits, and then it might attract more increased institutional and other retail investors who might want to come into that space. So it's an interesting time at the moment.
Yeah, most definitely is. And I do agree with you, Anthony. I think there will be a little bit of sell the news and rotating money out of the miners, which was previously kind of the only way to get exposure in a traditional investment account into the ETFs. However, I personally feel like a lot of that has already been shaken out over the last couple trading days. We're starting to see people who want to hold the miners for the long term getting into these positions. And again, this is my personal opinion, you guys, not financial advice, but I definitely feel like there's going to be a lot more demand for ETF, for Bitcoin than maybe the general public thinks. And as a result, we're going to continue to see those great transaction fees, which are helping offset some of the deterioration of block reward from halving, which right now is kind of the main, I guess, bearish point for the miners this year is, as you say, Anthony, their electricity costs are going to double. The block reward is going to be cut in half. However, I don't think that impact's going to be as big as a lot of people anticipate because of the activity, the network volume, and all of the people that want exposure to this asset. So time will tell. Definitely an exciting week. We're going to get the December production results out in the next day or two, and then we'll be sure to follow up with an ETF video as well. Anthony, thanks so much for your time here today. Anyone still watching the channel, the video, you guys hit the like button. It's free to do. It's a huge help. If you're not part of the channel, McNallie Money, feel free to subscribe. Anthony, congrats on hitting 11,000 on Twitter. We were just anticipating the 10,000. And now, or sorry, X, I should say, now you're at 11,000. So congrats there. And I'll flip it to you for final word.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing weekend. I'm hoping the good news this week, gives us all a bit more joy. Bitcoin price stay over 45,000. Miners are down. So, that volatility we talked about before, it does appeal to a certain type of investor. They like to see these big swings. Timing of the market is everything. But it's not for the faint-hearted. I mean, the volatility of the miners is far more volatile than the price of Bitcoin itself. But it does. There are a lot of people out there that do enjoy, some of these big changes and intraday changes. We saw the price this morning of some of these shares drop by 10, 12% in the first hour of trading, normal trading that is, and then literally turn around and get back above, back into the green. And so that's sort of a swing. If you can time the bottom well, it does appeal to a certain type of investor. But do your due diligence. Plenty of research. What we do on here and what we do on our other channels is give you a sort of like a little start as to where to be looking, and then you take that further and do some more due diligence before you make any financial decisions. But yeah, looking forward to this week.
Yeah, you and me both. I'm glad somebody's enjoying these swings, Anthony, because I'm not. One day I'm pre-ordering the Lamborghini, the next day I'm sick and remortgaging my house, so I don't know. Anyways, you guys have a great week. Hopefully we turn green today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you shortly.